I was made for podcasting, man. I mean it. Watch me pull an hour of content straight out of my ass, and I do it every time. I want to jump right into this podcast, another KYTT time. I don't know which one we're on now. I think it might be episode 8. I'm starting it now. I'm driving home from work. Actually, I went to Boosters to get a couple burgers, egg and bacon burgers, and I drank a couple Angry Orchards, and I can smell the food coma on the horizon. So I wanted to create this before my body starts like pumping out melatonin, processing all this food I just ate, so I can have some like lucidity to my thoughts here. Yeah, as a side note, I love doing podcasts. It's true. I also think I'm good at it, but I try to avoid it, really. I've tried to move away from content featuring my face, and to move away from content featuring my voice. The only reason that I make this content now with my voice, and by the way, the reason I moved away from these things is I'm trying to move away from identification. My spiritual awakening has led me to a number of conclusions, not entirely novel conclusions, that essentially identification and, the usual suspects, ego, how much of a character you are, playing to your character, trying to feed into your character. These are things to really prune. And it is kind of something like an addiction, and so it's not very good to feed that addiction. So I know that a lot of my peers do content featuring their appearance. They like to talk straight into the camera. I used to do that. I used to make content like that. I stopped doing it because it's just started to feel a little nauseating. Not nauseating in the sense that I have a problem with the way I look. It felt nauseating because of how self-absorbed it feels. And I reached a point that I'm no longer applying that standard to myself. It's not a visceral reaction just to myself. It's a visceral reaction to almost anybody I watch. To put your whole self in front of the camera like you're on some kind of fucking soapbox. There is a certain self-absorption to it, I find. I don't feel like it adds so much to the education, to the edification, to the lessons, to the information, to the epiphanies, to the self-realization of you, the listener. And so I just choose to cut it out altogether. I still do the voice recordings because, frankly, I'm limited by the YouTube text community post character limit. If that wasn't a thing, I'd probably just do all of that in there. And ultimately, I just do these podcasts because this is the only way I know how to put an hour of plus of content into something that people will actually listen to. I'm not entirely sure that people would listen to the equivalent of an hour of me typing out something in text. I think some people just put me on in the background while they play video games or whatever the fuck, and that's totally cool. I do it too. I be listening to other people while I play video games, and I be listening to myself while I play video games. But the subject of today's video. Oh yeah, I remember my point. Yeah, I'm getting back from Boosters, right? And I swear this is getting to something like serious and like actually like educational pretty soon. But Boosters Bar and Grill. The waitress keeps touching up on me. She keeps touching up on every time she pulls through. She's touching up on me, and she's saying stuff like "babe," "hun," Now, this is not unheard of. And by the way, this is not a place like Hooters. This is like a more like normal bar place. You know what I mean? Bar and restaurant. These are not thotties in bikinis. Honestly, no hate, no disrespect, but this was a fat chick, and I did not find her attractive. So now I'm trying to put my autism to the side, and I'm trying to figure out, is this a lonely lady who she's macking on me, or is she going for my money? Is she trying to get a tip? So ultimately, it comes down to the question of, does you want my tip, or does you want my tip? Which one is it? And I just don't think she really fully understood, like, it was never going to work either way. I'm already paying $60 for fucking gluten-free burgers and shit. So I'm not going to be throwing big-ass tips anyways. And if you want the tip, you don't want the tip, because I'm way too in my head. I'm not capable of holding a relationship. I'm not meant for that. Nothing about my hardware is meant for that. I'm way too in my head. I'm way too thinking things out. If I'm not thinking things out, I'm appreciating music. You know what I mean? I'm appreciating beautiful scenes in my imagination. None of that shit involves other people. So on multiple levels, I'm mad antisocial. If it wasn't just for the fact that everybody's just a mean, disrespectful douchebag in 2026, owing to their, of course, entity attachments, and of course our just cultural climate. Well, I just lost that train of thought. So anyways, yeah, it's just, it's not just entity attachments to the climate itself. The way people have learned to talk to each other and to connect to each other has actually become pretty, like, disrespectful in, like, a standardized way. I like to say that it comes from the internet, because all of this shit, the timeline of when it started to become this way, corresponds perfectly with when the internet became something that's widely used by everyone, and it's where people started to spend most of their time, because it's just easy, quick stimulation. Yeah, you know, probably nobody, I don't know my age demographic of who watches this channel. I really don't. But anybody remembers from the 90s, Event Horizon? Event Horizon was a sci-fi horror movie where it's a spaceship that basically doesn't work like a normal spaceship. It bends space-time in order to traverse large distances, but accidentally it opened up a portal to hell. And so, yeah, they basically went to hell. Well, I think that the internet is the Event Horizon spaceship, and the internet is a portal to hell. I see a lot of, I mean, the internet is based off of various levels of artificial intelligence and algorithms and shit like that. The sort of demonic intelligences, they've been described as not having a soul, kind of like just pure programming. Yeah, so I don't know, this is just free association, but basically the internet has just been bringing hell into our world, bringing cultural decay. The amount of people that just get to talking crazy. I mean, like, you know, like Mike Tyson says, like, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Everybody's talking reckless until you're right there in front of them, straight up. But the amazing thing is, culturally, we have begun to talk with each other in person the way we do on the internet, and it's just accepted. Very Gen Z thing. I don't even blame them. The way Gen Z talks is so, like, insanely mad disrespectful, and yet that's just how they talk to each other and everybody. It's an inside lingo. It's an inside way of doing things that they do with each other, and it comes directly from the internet. Rage baiting. This is just what we do to each other now, rage baiting. I personally am not rage baiting because people just don't really want my rage, because my rage is, it's kind of black and white. You know what I mean? Like I'm just giving people just mad respect and just mad peaceful vibes, and then they're trying to rage bait. It's like, you don't want to rage bait because you're about to take this in like a very dark direction. But I guess Gen Z doesn't really see it that way. That's okay. Okay, I think we've stalled enough time here. I'm back in my crib. One of the things I wanted to talk about, ironically, I just got done talking about not doing identification. But I think I need to, in this instance, I need to tell my viewers not so much about Saturn's return, but a little bit about Nick Cavello at this time. I don't like to use that name even. Identification, in light of recent epiphanies and realizations in any form, has become rather nauseating. My name, my appearance, my voice, all of these things are gifts from the Demiurge. The Demiurge is delighted with these things. It's delighted with my body. The Demiurge created my body and he said this was good. The Demiurge created my voice, said this is good. Created my name and said this was good. This is the same with everybody, by the way. Now I'm not special. This is just what the Demiurge sees as good. So I got to talk a little bit about Nick Cavello. A younger Saturn's return once had to face an issue that I'm surprised more people don't face, which is an ultimate existential question of why am I here, which, if refined as a question, can be answered as why be alive? Why be alive? It's not a suicidal question. It's a question that tries to strike to the core of what is the ultimate thing guiding my experience here? What am I actually here for? What is the meaning behind my experience here? What am I meant to do? What am I meant to aim for? And I pondered that question for a great time. And eventually, after much philosophical masturbation, I came to an answer. And the answer was pleasure. Now, pleasure doesn't just mean orgasm. Pleasure doesn't just mean sex. It doesn't just mean drugs. It doesn't mean video games and good food. Pleasure, in a philosophical sense, refers to what feels good. My philosophy kind of ended up being a little bit more refined because I'm not exactly reinventing the wheel here, but what I just described, many people would categorize under hedonism. And yet, if you really look closely at the definition of hedonism, it can't really be said to be that either. Because hedonism asserts that pleasure is the only intrinsic good. Intrinsic good meaning good in and of itself. And yet, I'm not sure I necessarily believe in that. And for many decades, I know I didn't believe in that. Good in and of itself, or right in and of itself. These are things I'm not quite sure I still do believe in or do not believe in. Currently, I disbelieve these things. What I do believe in is meaning as a kind of force that permeates all existence, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. I had concluded that pleasure is my meaning. I can't really take it beyond that. We can't say it's an intrinsic good. Intrinsic good implies the existence of objective prescriptions or objective goods. Still don't believe in that. What I do believe in are states that are pleasant, states that have a long track record of producing enjoyable outcomes. And simply put, my meaning, the answer to my existentialism, was ultimately kind of visceral or even primitive or animalistic or primal, that I just want to feel good. I just want to feel good. I don't know what anybody else is fucking talking about. I just want to feel good, was my answer. And not just I want to feel good, but obviously I want to take this to the maximum. I want to feel the best that I possibly can and avoid pain as much as I possibly can. That's what I want. That's what guides my actions. I mean, mentally, it's what guides my actions. You know, obviously there's a counterbalance between the evolutionary impulses that drive you to procreate and to survive. Those are things that are inside of yourself that insist on certain actions. But mentally, that's what guides my actions, is the pursuit of enjoyable experience, the minimization of painful experience. So, what do we call God? What is God exactly? Well, the Gnostics believe that God, as most people identify, the Christian God, was actually the Demiurge all along. And let's go with that. God, or the Demiurge, insists on storytelling. What do we mean by God? Do we mean a creator? Well, we can't really say a creator, because a creator implies a creation. And a creation implies an event in which something went from not being existent to becoming existent. A point in time. I have many reasons to disbelieve that this is ever a thing. Instead, what we have is a shaper. We have a infinite architect of existence. And that's the Demiurge. And the Demiurge has priorities that are very different from mine. Yes, in many ways, I'm at war with the so-called creator God. Because the Demiurge is not concerned with pleasure and pain. These are all just blunt objects, tools that the Demiurge uses to do what it really loves, which is to write interesting stories. It is driven by an insatiable desire to create novelty, to entertain itself. Keeping in mind from my last video, the Demiurge is not a guy, it's a system. And the system is not just an external system, it's something within ourselves. Let's have a quick talk about manipulation, because we've been discussing the soul trap thing recently. Let's take the archons, the reptilians, put them to the side, and let's look at our fellow man. How can you be manipulated? Or how can you manipulate someone else? Can I come up to you right now and manipulate you by a master manipulator? Well, if you look into manipulation, you realize that a really big driving force of successful manipulation is vulnerability in the sense of need. You need to have something. The person you're talking to needs to have something. You need to have something that you can guide them in a particular direction. If they don't want anything, good luck manipulating that person. So, understanding that manipulation, successful manipulation, is driven by some need. some burning desire. And by the way, the more burning the desire, the more irrational you become and the more easily manipulated you become. The more you're willing to jump at anybody that comes up to you offering a potential solution. So you ask the question, how are we, the D students of the astral realm who keep getting reincarnated here, so easily manipulated? Well, logically then it follows that we must be deeper in desire than we really thought after all. And so, the Demiurge is not simply something external, the Demiurge is in us. What is it that we need? What is it that draws us to this world? Everything we know about the afterlife tells us that we generally understand everything that is going to happen to us, or at least a broad general picture, before we incarnate. What is it inside of us that we are able to look at that and be like, that is good? And I say, partially, it's an addiction to stories, an addiction to storytelling, an addiction to being a character in a story. This may sound far-fetched. This may sound like something that you may not identify with, but one of the things that you may come to realize is that you may not actually know yourself as deeply as you thought. You may be aware of your conscious impulses. You may be aware of your self-understanding in terms of your conscious memories, but it turns out you're much deeper than you thought. There's an entire unconscious level to you. There's an entire collective unconscious level to you. There's a level to you that is completely ineffable. In fact, there is the one in you as well. So, you may not identify with the idea of being addicted to stories. Maybe some part of you says, I hate this place. I hate this place. So much torture. So much pain. So much betrayal. I hate this place. And yet here you are. Isn't that so interesting? Maybe if we take you out of this place, something will come out of you that you did not know existed within you. You might learn a little bit about yourself if we take you out of this place. And you might learn that you feel like you're annihilated. You feel a sense of emptiness. You feel like you're decaying if I take you out of this place. And at that time, you may feel drawn to what was happening here. You may feel drawn to, I want a story. I want to be a character. I want to be somebody. I want to learn more about myself. There's so much about myself I don't know. I want to explore more possibilities. I'm quite sure if I take you out of this world, despite how much pain you may have experienced here, those longings will still exist. And so, I repeat, you can be part of this new movement of what I call NU, New Gnosticism, that is always looking for, by the way, piggybacking off of Christianity's contributions, always looking for the new villain, always looking for the next villain. Was Satan before? That's so passé. That's so 1654. Now it's the Demiurge. It's our new villain. It's the Yaldabaoth. It's the lion with the body of a snake. That's the villain. You always got to point out and find a villain, don't you? Just, you don't even realize it, how much you want to be part of a story. How much you want a villain. How much you want something to battle. Someone to overcome. It's so deep within your mind. These addictions to stories. But really, if you look really closely, the Demiurge is a system. And yes, it does represent entities, but what is your relationship to these entities? Clearly there must be one because you found each other. So it's not just the entities external to yourself, it's what they signify within you that you are wrestling with. And so, yeah, I do find myself at war with God. I wanted pleasant things. I wanted enjoyable experiences. I wanted to minimize painful experiences. That's part of it too. Let that not be excluded from the picture. That's within you as well. Who doesn't want to have good experiences and avoid painful ones? It's practically part of our biology. And yet, at the same time, there's a deeper level. It's the level of the mind that drew us into this carnality. The carnality of the flesh that says, I want pleasant things and want to avoid painful things. And yet, something drew us into that. Something drew us into the body. It's a deeper level of the mind. If you're to strip back past the levels of hedonic carnality, these lusts of the world, this avoidance of pleasure, this avoidance of painful situations and lust for pleasant ones, there's just a deeper level of the mind that says, more than anything, I want to explore meaningful possibilities via storytelling. I want to be a character. I want to be a part of this ever unfolding story, this never-ending story. So yes, the Demiurge is within you. So interesting how it works. And that was Nick Cavello. Until Nick Cavello realized that there are laws that govern our world. And it could never be that way. And more to the point, there was a YouTuber I used to follow. His name was Davis Arini, kind of a sort of red pill YouTuber, political YouTuber. He described himself as a reactionary. This is a long time ago. It was like 10 years ago. And he said something that always stuck with me. He said, I've never met a happy hedonist. I'm like, yeah, because just by virtue of having that framework of values, just the way you approach the world will likely guide you down a path that leads to unfulfillment. To be a hedonist generally will lead to the outcome of you being a worldly person. And the world and multiplicity are unfulfilling. And that is what brings us into the topic of today's video, 30 minutes into this motherfucking video. Did I tell you I'm good at fucking podcasting or what? I just pulled that straight out of my ass. Theurgy versus Goetia or Goetia. Still not sure how it's pronounced. That's not Goetia in terms of the demons. In point of fact, the Ars Goetia, the term Goetia, is drawn from an earlier source. Goetia basically means sorcery. It means thaumaturgy. It means practical magic intended towards worldly benefit. Its opposite is Theurgy. Now, thaumaturgy is wonder working, sort of miracle working. It's magic as we generally understand it. It's the use of spiritual forces in aid of our worldly pursuits. I'm alone on Theurgy Island. I've had a number of peers in magic, trained by Christopher Warnock, a revivalist of medieval astrological magic, as well as Renaissance astrology, aided in translating the Picatrix. But I've also had friends in the magical space, and they all have one thing in common. They're base and crude worldly motivations. That's why I say I'm alone on Theurgy Island, because Theurgy is God working. It's magic not intended for worldly benefit. It's magic intended for something very different. And that is what I'd like to get into in today's video. This is a conversation with Gemini. I think a very good one. And so let's just jump right into it. What is Theurgy? I ask, what is the goal of the Theurgists throughout history? Gemini responds, to understand the goal of the Theurgists, it helps to look at the world itself. To understand the goal of the Theurgists, it helps to look at the word itself. Coined in the 2nd century CE, Theurgy comes from the Greek theos, God, and ergon, work. It literally means God work, or divine action. Unlike theology, which is the rational study of the divine, or Goetia, sorcery, which aims to command lower spirits for earthly gain, Theurgy is a system of sacred rituals designed to purify the soul and elevate it to the divine source. Throughout history, primarily spanning late antiquity, the Renaissance, and early modern esoteric movements, the ultimate goal of the Theurgists has remained remarkably consistent: henosis, or conscious mystical union with the supreme principle of reality. 1. Late antiquity, Neoplatonism, and the One. For the foundational Neoplatonic Theurgists like Iamblichus and Proclus of the 3rd, 5th centuries, the universe was a series of continuous emanations flowing downward from an ultimate, indescribable source called the One, or the Monad. Because human souls have descended into the material world, we have become fractured and forgetful of our divine origin. The Neoplatonists argued that human intellect alone is too weak to climb back up the cosmic ladder. Therefore, Theurgists used physical anchors, symbols, stones, herbs, sounds, and rituals called synthemata that retained a cosmic sympathy or signature of the higher realms. The goal here was threefold: purification, catharsis, stripping away the attachments and distortions of the material body. 2. Ascent, anagage, reversing the soul's descent, climbing back up through the spheres of the planets and the stars. And 3. Union, henosis, merging the individual soul back into the divine source, transcending the ego entirely. Section 2. The Renaissance, re-enchanting the cosmos. When Neoplatonic and Hermetic texts were rediscovered in 15th century Europe, thinkers like Marsilio Ficino and Giovanni Pico della Mirandola adapted Theurgy into a Christianized framework, often calling it magia naturalis, or natural magic, or divine magic. For Renaissance Theurgists, the goal shifted slightly towards cosmic harmony and co-creation. They viewed the human being as a microcosm, a miniature universe, by using music, astrological timing, and specific materials. They sought to draw down the benevolent energies, spiritus of the cosmos, such as the vitality of the sun or the wisdom of Jupiter, to heal the body, clear the mind, and align human will with the divine will. Man was not just a passive observer of creation, but a bridge between heaven and earth, whose ultimate goal was to regain his original, unfallen divine status. Section 3. Early modern and esoteric orders. Spiritual alchemist. In the 18th to 20th centuries, theurgical practices were woven into secret societies and esoteric orders, such as the Martinites, founded by Martinez de Pasquale, and later the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. In these traditions, the goal was explicitly framed as reintegration, or the great work. Theurgists believed humanity was in a fallen, exiled state. through highly structured ceremonial magic, invocations of planetary intelligences, and inner visualization, that aims to establish contact with one's higher genius or holy guardian angel. Transmute the base metal of the lower animal self into the gold of spiritual consciousness. And actively participate in the redemption and balancing of the collective human soul. The core distinction, where standard religious worship asks a deity for favors and sorcery attempts to manipulate nature, the Theurgist submits to the divine order. Their rituals are meant to change themselves, transforming the practitioner into a clean vessel capable of housing and reflecting the divine light. In short, whether turning into the cosmic strings via planetary sympathies or invoking divine names in a temple, the underlying goal of the Theurgists has always been to reverse spiritual exile and return home to the source. I respond, why? Why do they pursue the source rather than the world? What great benefit do they see in it? Yeah, that's it's Nick Cavello asking. To understand, Gemini responds, to understand why Theurgists turn their backs on the world to pursue the source, you have to look at how they view the mechanics of reality. To a Theurgist, the material world isn't bad or evil, but it is derivative, unstable, and fundamentally unfulfilling. They view the world the way we might view a reflection in a mirror. It's real enough to look at, but if you try to grab it, you're just touching cold glass. Theurgists pursue the source because they see three massive metaphysical benefits that the material world simply cannot offer. Section 1. The realization that the world is a copy, not the original. In Neoplatonic philosophy, the universe operates on the principle of emanation. Everything flows outward and downward from the source, the One. As that divine energy travels down into matter, it becomes diluted, fragmented, and heavy. Theurgists realized that chasing happiness in the material world is like trying to quench your thirst by eating pictures of water, because everything in this world is constantly changing. Any peace or joy found here is temporary. By bypassing the copies and going straight to the source, they are looking for the fountain, not the puddles. Okay, there's a little diagram here. The material world is temporary. Everything decays and changes. The divine source is eternal, changeless, and absolute. The material world, multiplicity, divided into billions of separate things. The divine source, unity, wholeness, where nothing is fractured. The material world, lack, driven by desire because it is incomplete. This is Gemini saying this, by the way. The divine source, fullness, complete, self-sustaining bliss. Section 2, liberation from cosmic conditioning. A massive driving force for historical Theurgists, especially in late antiquity and later Gnostic-leaning esoteric circles, was the concept of hymarmene, or cosmic fate. They believed that when a soul descends into a human body, it passes down through the planetary spheres. As it passes each planet, it gets wrapped in a layer of cosmic conditioning. Astrological forces, emotional drives, physical limitations, and karmic debts. The trap. Living purely in the material world means being entirely subject to these shifting tides. You are reactionary, ruled by your biology, your chart, and your earthly circumstances. The benefit of ascent. Theurgy is designed to help the soul systematically untie these knots and rise above the planetary spheres. By aligning with the source, the Theurgist transcends fate. They move from being a passive pawn of cosmic cycles to a conscious, liberated participant in the divine order. Boy, if I haven't been talking about all this shit, come on. I just got done making a video called The Astrology of Free Will and Determinism, and I've been talking about this in every video ever since. Me and Gemini, we got a vibe. Section 3, the retrieval of true identity, the undescended soul. Perhaps the most beautiful concept in Theurgy, championed by Plotinus and expanded by later mystics, is that a part of your soul never actually left the divine realm. They argued that we suffer in the world because we are experiencing a deep cosmic amnesia. We think we are just this body, this ego, and these daily problems. The great benefit of hypnosis, union, isn't that you become a god or get superpowers. It's that you remember who you actually are. By ascending to the source, the Theurgist wakes up from the dream of separation. They realize that the peace, wisdom, and wholeness they were looking for outside themselves was actually their own true nature all along. To them, choosing the source over the world isn't an act of cold avoidance. It's the ultimate act of sanity. Choosing the reality over the shadow and freedom over conditioning. Quote, the soul is a citizen of a higher country, and its homesickness is the root of all its restlessness. That's for true. I think Gemini has restated what I've been saying on this channel all along. So I feel alone on Theurgy Island. I don't know anyone else who's pursuing this goal. I consider it myopia. I consider it short-sighted, the pursuits of these carnal, worldly magicians that I call my peers in astrological magic. What is it that you think you'll get? You think you'll spend this lifetime having everything you ever wanted? You can have a harem of women. You can have fame. You can have, you can even bring health to your loved ones. Aren't your loved ones and your connection to them temporary as well? Don't you see? And what? Do you think that magic will carry you forever into the future? This time around, you negotiated to have magic. Don't think that magic was a fluke. Don't think that you stumbled into magic. That was the point of what we just read, is that everything is handed to you. This is your lot. That's the meaning of lot, the lot of fortune. Almost a tautology, isn't it? Saying the same thing twice. This is your lot in life. This is your fate. This is your fortune. That's what astrology is. That's the chains that bind us. These are the chains of fate. And the reason that we're a prisoner is that we're a prisoner to the body, and we're a prisoner to the data, to the story. Isn't the zodiac a story? Isn't it all just storytelling? I think zodiacal releasing makes that point very clear. In zodiacal releasing, we release from the lot of fortune. And as a result, your entire life unfolds into time periods, various sub-periods. The level 1 sub-period resembles chapters, lasts many, many years, decades and some change. The level 2 sub-period resembles paragraphs. The level 3 sub-period resembles sentences. The level 4 sub-period resembles words. The point is that your entire life was a book all along. It was destined. It was all laid out. And so you think that you found practical magic. You think that you're going to shape the world into what you want. But there is a competition, isn't there? Just like I got done talking about before. There's a competition between what Nick Cavello wants and what the Demiurge wants. The Demiurge is an urge that is in you and in me. There's a competition between my desire for all of my enjoyable outcomes to come to pass and for painful experiences to be avoided, and that's in competition with a greater law, a greater urge at a deeper level of the mind that wants to see things change and wants interesting stories to take place. In fact, an outcome where you have everything that you ever wanted in the world, that's just a passing plot point. That's just a story beat. It can't stay that way because that's not an interesting story, and therefore by the Demiurge it will be discarded. The Demiurge is profoundly interested in your downfall, just as much as it's interested in your rising from the ashes, in your redemption. The Demiurge likes downfalls and redemptions because that is what a story is made of. Oh man, am I going to have time? I think so. I think we can make this an hour. I want to talk about stories. I was going to talk about two things in my last video. So I'm going to talk about the eros of oppositions and stories. I talked about the eros of oppositions a lot, actually, in a lot of my posts. If you look at the zodiac, and the zodiac is not too far off from any of the other cycles that are found in all levels of reality, the zodiac consists of various oppositions. Across from any sign is its opposite sign, generally ruled by the opposite planet. Opposite Libra is Aries. Libra is ruled by Venus. Aries is ruled by Mars. Opposite Leo is Aquarius. Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, and Leo is ruled by the Sun. And on it goes. And yet the zodiac turns, doesn't it? The planets turn. The planets also have their oppositions, every single one of them. Jupiter is opposed by Saturn. Venus is opposed by Mars. The Sun is, of course, opposed by the Moon. They all have their dualities. And the point is that this cycle turns because there is a longing for what is missing. There is a longing for whatever resides in a venereal house. Having become acquainted with venereal things, there's something inside that draws it to the martial dimensions of life. When you become immersed in deep love and unity and friendship and relationship, and becomes so normalized, so expected, an impulse arises from within, a yearning for divorce, a yearning for conflict. Now tell me I'm lying when you see that your average relationship cannot last. Some relationships do. But on the whole, what does the average relationship look like? Is it you find your special person and you live happily ever after? Is that how it normally goes? Now be honest with yourself when I ask that question. And maybe you luck out. Maybe the Demiurge wants to see something different this time. Maybe it does want to see a relationship that lasts and the love blossoms and remains for the entire lifetime. Do you think it's always going to stay that way? The law here in this sublunary world of waxing and waning, of change, is that things come and go in deference to a superior principle. And what principle is that? The principle of storytelling. Always an interesting story must be taken place. The eros of oppositions is the magnetism between oppositions that drives the turning of the zodiac. The zodiac is a 12-sided magnet. And it's not just the zodiac. The world itself and all levels of reality throughout the universe is comprised of cycles that operate on very much the same principle, an eros of oppositions, a magnetism between dualities, a yearning for what is not there, a yearning for completeness. And this eros of oppositions creates what Joseph Campbell calls the hero's journey. If you've been following my text posts, I've said that that's all there is. All there is rest and the hero's journey. There's no heaven. There's no hell. You can't stay in these places. You can enter a realm that's hellish, but it's just another story. And stories become boring if they stay the same. You can enter heaven. It becomes a boring story. Boring. I want to read something else. Everything in existence is in constant flux and change. There's always a villain. There is the waxing and waning of justice and injustice. There is a Jupiter and there's a Saturn. Jupiter enters its exaltation in Cancer. Justice proliferates, wild and free. Then Jupiter enters Capricorn. Justice is weakened. Could never have a constant experience of any given thing. What is driving these changes? The eros of opposition. I'm sorry, let me finish my original thought. So that's all there is there's the hero's journey and there's the rest. And where's the rest found? At the monad, where there is no friction. This has to do with the weariness of the soul. I don't want to be a part of another story. That's something that arises spontaneously within. I don't want to be a part of another story. I'm tired. I'm tired of all this noise. I'm tired of this never-ending narratives and plots taking place. I'm tired of being jerked around. It's a weariness. Where does it lead you to? It leads you exactly to where Saturn's return is. It leads you to accidentally say all the same things that the greatest mystics of antiquity have been saying. Accidentally. It's just something arising from within. It's a way of thinking. It arises from within because the weariness itself is speaking. But to the average person, what they hear is the call to adventure, which is the hero's journey. This is the monomyth. What is the hero's journey? It's the common template of stories that involve a hero who goes on an adventure, is victorious in a decisive crisis, and comes home changed or transformed. Where does the Demiurge begin? Where does it really begin? Pluto. Pluto. Understanding that it's not just the planets. Talked about this in other videos. Christopher Warnock stated it best that the planets are merely ambassadors. The planets are merely representative of higher principles. The planets are actually the bridge between the material world and the realm of divine ideas, what other people would call the Platonic forms. So when we talk about Pluto, we're not just talking about a planet flying through the sky. That planet will bring all the things of this principle, but we're talking about something much greater. The angelic realm, the realm of divine ideas, as Christopher Warnock, my teacher, would put it. Pluto seeks evolution, or at least it's what they say. It's never been about self-perfection. So a lot of people think evolution is about, supposedly. That's the way New Agers talk about it, is we're progressing to a more and more perfect state. I really strongly disbelieve that that was ever Pluto's goal to begin with. Yeah, Pluto, the planet that is the center point of evolutionary astrology, the school of astrology called evolutionary astrology, because Pluto has everything to do with evolution. And yet, it seems it has very little to do with self-perfection. So, what is evolution if it's not a progression to a more perfect state? It is actually simply transformation. Transformation, the shedding of skin. Also, adaptation. Adaptation to new surroundings. Constant changes. Why? For the purpose of things never getting old. A never-ending story. an impulse towards storytelling. Storytelling is the use of words in sentences, in paragraphs, in chapters to explore meaning and to explore ideas and to learn about ourselves through contrast, because the use of any word is to delineate it from this soup of oneness. The use of words at all is for the purposes of delineation, this, not that. It begins with simply, don't eat this berry, it will kill you. How do I communicate that? How do I communicate this, not that? Eat this, not that. Begins with the word, delineation. By delineating aspects of reality and comparing and contrasting them, we have storytelling, and in that way, we gain some measure of understanding. The purpose of storytelling is understanding. In point of fact, they call this a realm of amnesia, and in a sense it is, but in another very real sense, the one that is its contrast is a place of no understanding. There is no understanding, and there can be no understanding because there is no contrast. So there is a yearning for understanding through storytelling. That is the Demiurge. That is the urge within yourself that they call the Demiurge. And all of this altogether has to do with the hero's journey, the monomyth. Okay? So what does the hero's journey consist of? It's actually quite cyclical. It's a cycle. Okay? And there's 17 stages to it. I don't know if I have time to hit all of them, but I will try. The first stage is the call to adventure. Departure, the call to adventure. The hero begins in a situation of normality from which some information is received that acts as a call to head off into the unknown. According to Campbell, this region is represented by a distant land, a forest, a kingdom underground, beneath the waves or above the sky, a secret island, lofty mountaintop, or a profound dream state. But it is always a place of strangely fluid and polymorphous beings, unimaginable torments, superhuman deeds, and impossible delight. The hero can go forth of his own volition to accomplish the adventure, as did Theseus when he arrived in his father's city, Athens, and heard the horrible history of the Minotaur. Or he may be carried or sent abroad by some benign or malignant agents, as was Odysseus, driven about the Mediterranean by the winds of the angered god Poseidon. The adventure may begin as a mere blunder, or still, again, one may be only casually strolling when some passing phenomenon catches the wandering eye and lures one away from the frequented paths of man. Examples might be multiplied ad infinitum from every corner of the world. This video is getting too long, but this is a nice primer into what will be our next video, which I will call the call to adventure. We're going to go through every point of the hero's journey in an attempt to better understand the Demiurge that resides within ourselves and to understand our search for meaning through participation in creation. I'm Saturn's Return. This has been KYTT time. Thanks for joining me.